Despite what Yuval is trying to say, there is a very real reason for women to be scared of men. And if we ignore that, if we follow along with Yuval Noah Harari's academic gaslighting, then we're really not going to get at the roots of patriarchy or the roots of any other form of oppression, to be honest with you. Hello, friends of the internet. I am very glad you are here. Personally, I am feeling both excited and a little nervous about today's topic. I have recently felt very compelled to make this video, even though I read Sapiens, I don't know, like 5-6 years ago, maybe even more than that. Whenever Sapiens came out and it was a big hubbub, everyone was reading it, everyone was raving about it. I read it back then, had a very particular reaction to the section of the book about patriarchy, put the book down, remained resentful. That seed of resentment has been watered, transformed perhaps as well through both my experience in academics right now, as well as in my work as a therapist. So for those who don't know, my name is Julia Sunderland. I'm in a doctorate program to become a clinical psychologist right now. I'm very immersed in the world of academia, and I am also immersed in the world of humans because I am actively seeing clients, actively seeing many female clients as well. And I don't necessarily think that academia is a separate world from humans, but I really do feel like academia can be removed, disconnected from the world of humans. And that is one of the reasons why I want to make this video today, speaking to what I feel like is academic gaslighting by Yuval Noah Harari in his book, Sapiens. What is academic gaslighting? For me, I believe that when we use our intellect, our academic reputation to explain away someone's experience, we are gaslighting them, but in a very unique way of using this like highly intellectual cognitive capacity to discredit someone's lived experience. It is something that I have seen and also experienced in academics in my doctorate program. If we're honest, academics, the world at large, is not necessarily a place that is welcoming to minorities. And I have seen and witnessed some of my friends who are people of color, students of color, have their experience discredited in class, in readings, and also in the work that we're doing in training by supervisors, which I want to put an end to and I want to bring awareness to in order to put an end to. And I think Yuval Noah Harari's book, Sapiens, especially the chapter around patriarchy, is a fantastic case of academic gaslighting. So we're going to walk through what Yuval is trying to say, what he isn't saying, and also how he's deflecting from a lot of what we know about oppression and patriarchy. So for those who may not have read Yuval Noah Harari's book, Sapiens, he basically outlines history and does a really generally fantastic job of simplifying a lot of complex elements of humanity and explaining them based on the arc of our development as a society, as a culture, as a species, hence the name Sapiens. Interestingly though, there's this one part of the book where he doesn't really give a good solid answer to something in particular, and that is patriarchy. What he does instead is he lists 3 pre-existing theories around patriarchy, and then he systematically debunks them with uncited evidence and fairly cherry-picked claims around the theories. Essentially, what he is doing is he's saying there are these 3 theories as to why patriarchy exists, and from his perspective, they don't hold any credence, they fall flat, and that they're not convincing whatsoever. I happen to disagree with him very, very strongly on his first two theories. So he gives a section for each theory, the first of which he titles muscle power. And he writes, the most common theory points to the fact that men are stronger than women, and that they have used their great physical power to force women into submission. He then goes on to describe why this theory about muscle power isn't convincing. He writes, there are two problems with this emphasis on muscle power. First, the statement that men are stronger than women is true only on average and only with regard to certain types of strength. Okay, yes. There are different types of strength. Women and men are strong, oftentimes in different ways. I very much agree with that. If men had to have a monthly period, carry a baby for 9 months, and then give birth to the baby, I don't know if they'd be strong enough to do it. So I do agree that men and women are both strong, oftentimes in different ways. I'm with him there. That makes sense. However, what he is avoiding here is that oppression, which patriarchy is a form of oppression, uses physical force to maintain power dynamics, the power hierarchy. Men are generally stronger and have more physical force than women. So in the realm of maintaining an oppressive system, men are more adapted to physically oppress through physical force less strong people, which on average are women. I really believe that physical force is one of the key enforcers of oppressive systems. And it doesn't even just have to be the application of physical force. It can also just be the threat of physical force. And we see physical force be used to maintain oppressive systems. We see that with police who use physical force or the threat of physical force to curtail protesters. And we also see the physical force of our government used to threaten racial minorities as well. So Yuval is trying to say that patriarchy can't exist because of muscle power, because women are also very strong. However, physical force is a particular type of strength that men excel in, on average have more of, and therefore are able to use physical force or the threat of physical force to maintain a power imbalance or a power hierarchy. Yuval then writes, women are generally more resistant to hunger, disease, and fatigue than men. Well, that is phenomenal. That's great to know. I'm so stoked for women that we're very strong at these things. Resistance to hunger, disease, and fatigue will not save us, will not protect us from physical force. If a threatening man approaches a woman on the street, resistance to fatigue, hunger, and disease will not save her in that moment. Come on, Yuval, isn't that obvious? Why are you trying to distract us from the truth? Ugh. All right, then this is the piece that kind of ruffles my feathers. So he says, yep, women are more resistant to hunger, disease, fatigue than men. So clearly patriarchy can't exist because women are stronger in those ways. And what I am saying is those areas of strength do not protect women from the physical force that men can apply and use to maintain oppressive systems. He then suggests that, quote, there are also many women who can run faster and lift heavier weights than many men. This claim that there are many women that can run faster and lift heavier weights than many men is not backed by any numbers whatsoever. Whatsoever. I'm not going to pull citations right now on the average speed of men and women. What I will do is speak to my personal experience as a former cross-country runner in my high school and college, where I was so frustrated for so much of my running career because no matter how hard I trained, no matter how much I ran, I still couldn't run faster than, I don't know, like half, the slowest half of the boys on the team. I was on the varsity girls team. I was probably within the 10 fastest female runners on my team. and I probably could only run as fast as the 50th slowest boy. This irks me so much because he's saying many women can outrun many men. In my experience, there's only a minority of women who can actually outrun many men. And it's not even that many. I want to recognize that with endurance running right now, with ultra marathons, women are proving to be better endurance runners than men. Super cool. I'm so stoked about it. That is fantastic. But here's the but. Being attacked by someone isn't a marathon. Being attacked by someone is a sprint. It is a sprint. And a woman may be able to run faster than a man for 100, 200 miles. That is incredible. It is so worth celebrating. But when it comes down to a 100-meter sprint out of your house, if it's a domestic partner, off of the street, if it's outside somewhere where you're walking, at the end of the day, there are not that many women who can outrun men. And I don't know, this just pisses me off that Yuval is trying to protect patriarchy in such a nefarious way, in such a hidden, subversive way. He's almost, on the surface, he's celebrating women's strength and women's speed and women's ability. But underneath it, he's really avoiding the fact that men still pose a massive threat, massive physical threat to women. And really kind of what I'm dancing around here is physical violence. Like, muscle power enables physical violence, which is acted on women throughout our history. I think what Yuval is trying to say in his argument is that women can protect themselves from physical violence. But my case is that in many ways, the threat of physical violence is still such a lived reality for so many women, including myself. I don't know how many times I was going out into the world and my parents would express some kind of worried concern. I'm like, be safe, watch your back, look out for what's out there, because there's always this looming potential threat of a man overpowering a woman through physical force because they are stronger, bigger, or faster than women. Now, I'm speaking in large generalizations, so I will acknowledge that there are some women who are bigger than some men. There are some women who are stronger than some men, just like Yuval is saying. But what I want to emphasize is that the vast majority of women are smaller, slower, and not as strong as the vast majority of men. Yuval then writes, there is simply no direct relationship between physical strength and social power among humans. And he then goes on to use the example of slaves on a plantation who are inherently stronger than the masters who own the plantation. If strength had anything to do with patriarchy or oppression, then the stronger slaves would be able to overthrow the masters. Oh my gosh. I like such narrow focus on strength without any regard of the systems at play here is just crazy. It just blows my mind. Like, this guy's an academic? Come on now. I think what really ruffles my feathers is that the masters have guns. They also have a government, a political system that is on their side. So even if these slaves were able to overthrow the masters with physical force, they were able to remove the guns from the masters, they were able to use their strength to overcome the masters, they would then have the threat of more physical violence from police, from the government, from other masters who were in a position of power. I can't even believe he used that point as an example. It goes to show that he is not thinking multidimensionally about patriarchy or oppression. He wraps up this section by suggesting that the chain of power within the species is more determined by mental and social abilities than by brute force. He writes, quote, It is therefore hard to believe that the most influential and most stable social hierarchy in history is founded on men's ability to physically coerce women. I'm just gathering myself here because I feel like he is in no way recognizing these centuries, millennia of physical violence towards women, and especially physical violence towards women of minorities. I really get the sense that he is quite invested in defending patriarchy and deflecting away from the truth that patriarchy is, of course, enforced and based on physical violence and the strength of men. And what's interesting, he says that mental and social abilities are more important than physical force. But as someone who's in school to become a therapist, I readily recognize the impact that physical violence and trauma has on your ability to think straight and be strategic and actually have mental capacities. In summary, Yuval is trying to say that women are just as strong as men, and therefore patriarchy is not based on the muscle power of men. And what I would like to emphasize is that the muscle power that is required for maintaining oppressive systems is physical force. And in that dimension, men on average are stronger. Resistance to disease, resistance to fatigue, resistance to hunger, those elements will not protect a woman from physical violence. I wish it was the case. I wish that were true, but unfortunately, Yuval, it is not. The second theory that Yuval tries to debunk in this section on patriarchy is that men are inherently more violent than women, and for that reason, patriarchy is enforced and instilled by the violence of men towards women. Yuval tries to debunk this by going up 1,000 feet above the lived experience of women and focusing more so on empires. What Yuval writes in this section is that empires are built on strategy and manipulation rather than on brute force. And he writes that women are stereotyped to be better at manipulating and strategizing. So if that were the case, he writes, if there's any truth in these stereotypes, then women should have made excellent politicians and empire builders, leaving the dirty work on the battlefields to the testosterone-charged but simple-minded machos. So according to Yuval, violence is not the enforcer of patriarchy because strategy is actually more important than violence. It just blows my mind that he goes up to the empire level. I think by going up to empires and saying what makes or breaks an empire is strategy, I think he's really trying to deflect and distract away from the roots of patriarchy, which are very much based on violence. What I personally want to focus on is the compounding effect of physical, emotional, psychological violence on the effect of individuals, not empires. Violence of any form, or even the threat of violence, crushes a person's sense of self, sense of worthiness, and therefore makes them easier to oppress. And as I mentioned before, violence also leads to trauma. And when someone has trauma, they have a harder time strategizing and manipulating. I feel like Yuval is trying to focus on empires because that distracts us from the very real truth that patriarchy is enforced not by empires, but by the daily acts of physical, sexual, and emotional violence towards women. It's not unknown that patriarchy and forms of oppression are based on violence and physical force. And yet here is Yuval Noah Harari, who's a very well-respected scholar, suggesting that patriarchy is not based on the muscle power of men or their tendency towards violence. That is so crazy. That is so crazy. I can't believe it. It makes me wonder how invested he is in the benefits and the power that he has through patriarchy, that he has to defend it so much with his intellect, with his academic reputation. With some of my clients right now who are female-bodied, violence towards them is so alive right now. It's so present in our sessions. The impact of patriarchy as a form of oppression that is enabled through violence and physical force is so top of mind for me in sessions with my female-bodied clients that it's honestly like a personal offense that Yuval would try to say that physicality, muscle power, violence are not enforcers of patriarchy. I wanted to speak to this in case there are any women who read Sapiens and were left questioning, like, is my experience real? Is my concern about violence, is the worry, the anxiety that I feel around violence towards myself, is that real? Like, can that be credible? Because I'm supposed to be strong. I'm supposed to outrun fatigue. I'm supposed to outrun disease, like all of those things. Thanks, Yuval. Your fear, your anxiety is so valid. It is so valid. I want us to be aware of these instances where people are using their academic rigor, their academic reputation to convince us otherwise. Your experience is so true and real and valid and worthy. I also am making this video because I have so many male friends who read Sapiens and just were raving about it. They were so excited. It really resonated with them. And for all my bros out there, all my friends who are male-bodied, who read Sapiens and really enjoyed it, please, 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 please give this section a second thought. Your ability, your size, your strength, your tendency towards violence, they are all very real, and they all have massive consequences on the feeling of safety that the women in your life may have. Despite what Yuval is trying to say, there is a very real reason for women to be scared of men. And if we ignore that, if we follow along with Yuval Noah Harari's academic gaslighting, then we're really not going to get at the roots of patriarchy or the roots of any other form of oppression, to be honest with you, because the roots are violence and physical force. Threat of physical force or the actual reality of physical force. And as a male-bodied person, if you are heavier than a woman, if you are stronger than her, if you can run faster than her, there's a really good chance that there is inherent threat, inherent unsafety in your relationship. I believe that allyship and dismantling patriarchy really starts with recognizing your own power, your own strength, your own size, and what that means for the women in your life, so that you can truly recognize your own position of power rather than trying to explain away your position of privilege. I will step off my soapbox now. Thank you for joining me on this ride of trying to see clearly through the gas and smoke that I believe Yuval Noah Harari is creating around patriarchy, so that we can clear it out of the way and get to the roots of oppression for everyone, not just women, not just people of color, but everyone writ large. If you have any comments on how Yuval Noah Harari positioned patriarchy in his book Sapiens, or if you just have any comments writ large about patriarchy and how it is enforced, I would be glad to hear them. I'd love to have a conversation with you and build a community around dismantling patriarchy together. I will be releasing videos on Wednesdays, so if you'd like to stick around for the latest and greatest, please subscribe. I hope to see you next time, and until then, ciao.